Alright, so I'll go ahead and get a start on this. I wanted to do it this broadcast this week, but things don't always go to plan. I actually want to go a bit more and add a little bit more to it. So officially, this is not that broadcast. This is not the unforced error that I wanted to do. In fact, this is actually the prelude. Um, so I'm just gonna do something here where I just want to start talking about what I'm going to talk about to kind of lead into what I'm going to talk about next week. And that is this unforced era, naivety. Being naive. And like quite a few of these unforced errors where I've witnessed or experienced it, this one I'm actually suffering the consequences of it now, like right now, today. Sometimes your errors take years to catch up to you. But if there's one thing I will say, eventually they do catch up to you. Let's get to it.
Put some respect on my name. You understand me? When y'all saying my name, put some respect on it.
So I am actually very humble. My I don't, I don't assume that I have an ego. I don't subscribe to it. I'm not very prideful. I am, whenever I do something, I take pride in my work and what I do and what I actually accomplish because that's what you should do. You should reward yourself for it. But I don't just walk around thinking I'm hot shit and I'm that guy. No, instead I prove it. Some of you might catch that dark. Yeah, I get out there and just do it. But if you notice, there is a symbol on here, and I talked about this one and the meaning of it, and it's a quote that is related to a quote that comes from the book that I talked about earlier. Um, I believe it's not the laws of human nature, but it's another one. It's not with me right now, but pretty much the quote is, "Today there was rain in the mountains," and eventually that is, an analogy for trouble to come. In the book there was the rain in the mountains, and there was a bit of delay between the rain in the mountains and the flooding on a beach that people would frequent, and the locals knew that when it rained in the mountains, you're not supposed to go to the beach. And there were a bunch of naive little kids that were unaware. And in the book and the story, an older man comes to them, can barely speak English, but he pretty much kept repeating today. But today there was rain in the mountains. And the kids were like, "Yeah, but we're going to the beach." Yeah, and he's like, "Well, but today there was rain in the mountains," and they didn't know why he was so adamant on the rain being in the mountains. They're like, okay, cool, you said that before, we're going to the beach. But unbeknownst to them, they didn't know that when it rains in the mountains, the rain comes down from the mountains, down from the creek or the lake that eventually rushes by the beach they're about to be on. And they didn't know that there's a regular flooding that happens where it pretty much a bunch of rampant tides come down from the mountains and pretty much wash over the entire beach. And anybody that's on the beach is pretty much washed away in it. And especially kids, like if you ever seen like whitewater, tides, they're very dangerous, and you can and will drown in them. And eventually, those kids, eventually they realized what happened as it was happening because the guy said, and they looked at the beach while it was happening in real time, and they saw the tide go up, they saw it wash around, they saw a giant whirlpool and they pretty much acknowledged that if they had been on that beach, they would all drowned and died. And then they pretty much looked to the man and were like, "Thank you for saving their lives." And the guy just, kind of smiled and, was like, "Man, today there was rain in the mountains." and now they understood what that meant. So I'm letting you guys know that today there was, well, actually, it was last week. Actually, it was years ago, but there was rain in the mountains that I did not acknowledge, and I will admit it. We all make errors in life. We all make mistakes. It's funny how I can say that, and a lot of people absolutely don't acknowledge the mistakes that they've made unless it's used for something like an excuse. That's one of the reasons why people like using their mistakes, unless it's useful as an excuse for something. I'm not subscribing to that. I'm just letting you know that yes, we all make mistakes. I could have taken things seriously. Actually, I was privy to them. I was privy to them. And this is the danger of being naive. This is the danger of society pretty much allowing this to happen, allowing children to remain children up until their teens, and sometimes till, I mean, for if you're a woman, if I'm just being serious, society allows you to be a child pretty much for the entirety of your life, if I'm just being serious. But this is the danger of being naive because, and the danger of lying and deception, which I still have to do a broadcast on that. I have to do a rewind on that, a lot of me broadcast. That is coming because that actually does tie into this. Because part of being a naive was because people around you would tell you you're doing good. This is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes things don't turn out right. They don't turn out well. And you're expected to, because of the way society's going, you're expected to just shut up and just take it. And you did something wrong, and it's your fault, and you jumped in that water and you didn't know how to swim. And the problem is they told you jump in the water, but they didn't tell you how deep it was, or they didn't tell you how to swim, or the way they taught you how to swim absolutely doesn't work. But aside from that, we all have to be able to get back up, especially as men. We have to be able to pick ourselves up. That's that's really one of the main benefits of being a guy. You have time on your side. You have some years to actually figure things out and work your way up. As long as you're willing to work hard for it, you're willing to get it, you can get it. But pretending to be naive, this does relate to my marriage. This does relate to my daughter, whom unfortunately is, and I do not like saying this, whom unfortunately is one of these bastard babies I talk about. And there is a story behind that. I absolutely was. I don't even want to say deceived because I can't even say it was deceived. I was betrayed in that regard. But long story short, or should I say, to abbreviate, I saw a bunch of red flags. I experienced a bunch of red flags, or at least red flags that I, as a person, knew that there was something to it. I'll probably talk about them later, but some of them I'd rather not because they are kind of major and I don't want to put somebody's business out there. But let's just say I saw some red flags early in my relationship, roughly 10 years ago. And because of the way society was going, me being the person I am, unfortunately being surrounded by simpler minded people, I was willing to accept that, because like I said, I don't, my ego's in check. I am willing to acknowledge something if I'm wrong about something, I'm willing to acknowledge it. I'm willing to adjust. And in the cases where I don't know something, I am aware of my own ignorance. So this is one of the first relationships, and to date actually only relationship, where I actually was like, hey, this could actually be the one. This could actually lead to marriage. And early in my relationship, there were some red flags. And part of me knew that they were serious. I did some things to kind of vet for it. We didn't jump straight into a relationship. We kind of jumped into a situationship first for some months, just because I wanted to make sure that some of the issues that I thought could be there weren't there. And also because society wants you to think one way, like, oh, that's not serious, when in fact it absolutely was that as serious as I thought it could be. But like I said, I was young and naive. Not young and stupid. I will not say that. I might have did some stupid stuff, but I will say this. I was aware that they could potentially be some red flags. And to be honest, I held on to that potential belief all the way up until I could disprove it, which I could never disprove it. Therefore, they were always there in the back of my mind to some extent. However, I put in she put in and we put in a good, probably, I want to say at least a year and a half. I want to say maybe 2 years, and there were no issues whatsoever at all. And that was where I was like, and then after those 2 years, that's when I was really seriously considering, okay, I could have been wrong to start this off. I had my, I had my doubts, but those were disproven. So you know what? I could have been wrong. I could, and I was willing to accept it. Little did I know that there was rain in the mountains. There was rain in the mountains before I ever met her. There was rain in the mountains before this became even a thing. And I was unaware of it. And when I did become aware of it, which was within the last year or so, where I actually was willing to admit that, you know what, I absolutely was wrong. And those red flags absolutely did mean as much as I thought they could have meant. And through all the lies and deception that society and even she told to some extent, I I still have to be able to acknowledge that I still made those choices despite, whatever buffoonery, or deceptive tactics that were used on me. I do acknowledge that I should have been more aware, and bear with me, guys. I critique myself very hard, very very hard. Like I said, I was privy to those red flags to begin with. I thought that, of course there was some lying there, but I thought that I could have been wrong because I knew I was young. I knew that I um, was ignorant towards some things. I did have a higher IQ than EQ than normal. So, socially I was fairly adept. I could read people fairly well, understanding emotions, to some extent, what, understanding why people do certain things, not everything, certain things. I will say the business and Jason Black helped me fine tune my ideology, thank God. And actually, that's what actually led me to where I am now. It was actually fine tuning my ideology that eventually led me to acknowledging my own naivety, why things are the way they are now. Things were good, of course, as always are when people make certain commitments. Of course, things start good, and then eventually those red flags start you know making it known. You know, the weed use. That was a red flag. Was animate about that. I do not like drug use whatsoever, and usually I steer far and clear away from it. But when you get tied up with someone, when you aren't able to properly verify some information you get or what you believe in, it can make it hard on you. And I am willing to admit and acknowledge my naivety. I was naive. I did not know enough. I was blind. Not, I mean, I was peeking through the sash for some reason, but I will say the choices at this point, I was blind. Um, Although I am earning and I have been earning, you know, I'm not a bum, so I have been earning well above average, throughout my career. However, I will say I was blind towards the person I decided to deal with, which eventually would lead to where we are now. Of course, she doesn't like how I talk, but most of the real. I'm gonna speak the real. Um, I have a bastard child. My child was had before I got married, actually 2 years to be approximately, because although when my child was born, I was engaged for, I want to say, like about a year or two, actually. And the reason for that is because, like I said, I understood, I was ignorant towards certain things, and I wanted to make sure. And in my making sure, I still remain naive and allow myself to, I don't want to say duped, because like I said, I knew there were risks, and I stupidly took the risk. I went along with it because now I understand that what I should have done through my naivety is, I now understand what I should have done was just leave it alone. I should have remained single. Should have left it all years ago. And that's hard to say because that's the only solution to this. There is no solution where I continue dealing within the relationship and things going well, because eventually it would have just led up to this anyway. It's just we got here sooner. So I will acknowledge me being naive did lead up to this. A pending separation and, as of now, inevitable divorce. Because there was a Rubicon crossed. There was a Rubicon crossed. And there is no coming back from that. I will say that. I can tolerate a lot. I can, even though I shouldn't have to, but I can, and I was willing to because I was not perfect. I'm not a perfect person. Like I said, I still had to be able to figure things out, especially financially. I had to get to where I am, but it's not due to a lack of performing. I am exactly where I said I would be 2 years ago, despite certain setbacks, despite certain betrayals and setbacks. I am still exactly where I said I would be 2 years ago. I was the number one guy at my position the last 2 years. I do have top pay where I am currently, straight out the gate, because of my performance the last 2 years. Not because of anyone that came before me, not because of, even though my grandfather worked here and he trained the people that were here, I did not use his name to get benefits or anything. No, I put in the work and I let it be known. So now all the drivers I work with, all of whom I still have to know their names, they know who the fuck I am. I was the number one guy the last 2 years, 2 years, and I set the stage for where I am now. Absolutely. So I will acknowledge that yes, and I planned on being on track to where I am currently. I am exactly where I said I would be 2.5 years ago. I had to put the half because I actually said it 2.5 years ago. But yeah, I am exactly where I said I would be, doing exactly what I said I would be doing. I did exactly what I said I would do. Didn't miss a beat whatsoever at all. However, I have to acknowledge that, and this is why I said, today there was raining. Sometimes you have to acknowledge that, damn, you actually made the mistake well before you started executing your current plan. You overlooked some things years ago. The person you dealt with, maybe something caught up to you. Some people still getting locked up for some BS that happened years ago. You overlooked something. There's the potential that you overlooked something, and you honestly shouldn't have. You should have discontinued it years ago. And I will acknowledge that. That's actually the only solution that I could have thought of where, my daughter wouldn't have been born into the situation she was born into. I did not want her to be a bastard baby. Absolutely not. You know, my wife knew that. But like I said, there was betrayal, and things happen as they happen. I think I talked about that earlier. But there was betrayal. Some people might even say borderline sabotage. But there was betrayal. Absolutely. Because I made it very well known years ago that I did not want to have any bastard kids. I wrapped up because of it. I promoted uh, birth control because of it as a backup. And even if because it took years for me to even get comfortable not utilizing condoms. And I will say this, that was stupid. That was absolutely stupid. I will say that that was stupid. Always wrap up. That's actually what I always said and did up until I was stupid and didn't. I trusted someone that absolutely shouldn't have, and it shouldn't have happened. So if there's some advice I will say to you young men, always wrap up if you engage in any type of activities with women. And to be honest, if you're in your 20s, I would just say work. You shouldn't be out here chasing chicks. I will say that. You shouldn't have to worry about chasing chicks. Get over that that desire you have. We all have it. I will say that. I actually spent quite a bit of time in my 20s conquering that desire because I understood that it was a potential pending weakness. But like I said, I was naive. I didn't think I'd fall somewhat victim to to that very weakness I worked so hard to conquer because I decided to trust someone. Yeah, you shouldn't have to trust someone. You shouldn't have to. I mean, sometimes you have to, but think about when you have to. Usually, it's when you're in a position of weakness or desperate. Usually, not always, but usually, because you can't do something or accomplish something yourself, or you're unwilling to go without. So no, you shouldn't have to trust your, say, me talking to the guys. You shouldn't have to trust your girlfriend. No, you shouldn't have to trust your wife. To be honest, things should just get done. If things got done, I wouldn't have to trust that it would get done. I just know that it will get done. But I will have to talk about this. This is just a prelude. This is just the lead up to what I'm going to talk about later on. I might do a couple more. I might, because I have some clips, some supporting clips, some clips from Jordan Peterson, some clips from Jason Black, some clips. Probably I'll even add to that because, I just go with the flow of things, actually. I posted the word of the day. It's actually the word of the week, probably. Naive. I'll have to show, that eventually, as well as wisdom. That'll probably be the future word of the day, wisdom. Um, that's in contrast to being naive. But the thing about wisdom is it takes time, experience, and that's one thing. Like I said, I was aware of my own ignorance because a lot of that ignorance was a lack of experience. And if you don't have a proper mentor, which I did not, you have that lack of actual wisdom. So that's very important. Like I said, that's one of the reasons why I do acknowledge Jason Black so much because he actually brings that wisdom and confirms a lot of the things that I was suspecting or suspicious of because of just how I see things working in the world and always have seen them work in the world. And I'll also post something, um, you know, I think it's yeah, I'll post a clip that up to a video um, put out there by the Black Authority, Jason Black, years ago that I wish I had seen it years ago and it would have confirmed all of my suspicions. Why I've always felt like I was surrounded by either it's like that quote that I posted, it was actually a quote of the day by Albert Einstein. The thing that always drives me hazy is am I or are the others crazy? Meaning, I had been the things that I had thought for so long. When I try to talk to people to kind of understand, okay, why is this, why is that, and people would kind of, they acknowledge what I'd say sometimes, and then they'd eventually get down to beating it down out of me, making me into a proper little, simp, or trying to at least. And why is this? Why is that? Why, some of the things that we know about society today that just don't make sense. Like why are people like this? Why are people like this? Why do people do this? Why do women do that? Why do men do this? Why are you saying this? And then people would just be like, okay, why are you talking like that? Get on program. Just take what I'm just take what Just be exploited, pretty much. That's pretty much what they were saying. If I had to say what they were trying to say, abbreviate what they're trying to say to me or tell me, is just be okay with being exploited. And I was pretty much like, I will, but I'm not okay with that. And then of course there'd be a bunch of backlash because of it. But one things that I will say, there is a rant. I don't even want to say it's he calls it a bit of a, well, I'm not gonna put words in it, but some people could say there was a bit of a rant, and it was like the thing about stupidity and a dumb rant, or something of talking about just intelligent people and how we're surrounded by the stupid. And it was, of course, done by the authority, Jason Black. I'm going to actually play some clips from that. I'm probably actually going to talk about that next in the next one, leading either as an additional lead up to or part one to this unforced error. And that rant, that video, it's 40, 50 minutes long, but that video is exactly how I've been thinking and feeling since I was damn near 10 years old. Honestly, 6 years old, if I'm just being honest. But I never, let's just say I always felt like an outcast. I always felt like an outcast. I always question, why people would be so willing to spend, and this was actually a real thing. Like, I would always look at people who Jordans was the big thing, back in school, and I would always question, like, why the hell are you spending $200 on a fucking pair of shoes? That was always stupid to me. Never bought a pair of Jordans in my life. Do not plan on doing it ever. Some of the music people listen to nowadays, I question it. I have nothing against rap, but I do have something against, what is it, the mumble rap? Some of this, some music is just absolutely horrid, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? That's in that rant too. I've always felt that way. One of the reasons why I don't listen to the radio, I haven't listened to the radio like for music. God, it's been so long, at least a decade. I just don't listen to the radio like that. I really don't. I have not listened to the radio like that. Maybe if I'm in the car, like nowadays, I just listen to NPR news stations, stuff like that. I mean, there's some propaganda there too, but still, like I'm at least able to, I don't want to hear some bullshit tune playing over and over in my ear. I'd rather just pick apart certain propaganda pieces, or sometimes some actual genuine news or stories and articles or whatever, right? Something informative. I always like inform myself. I didn't, as a kid, I was the kid that watched Nat Geo and you know Animal Planet. I didn't, yes, I watched some cartoons, but I genuinely enjoyed watching the Science Channel, Discovery Channel, Science Channel, stuff that was informational. I absolutely enjoyed it. Which now I look back upon my life and I'm like, why the fuck didn't I major in physics? Or like I said, guys, there was I'm willing to acknowledge some things that I got wrong. Of course, a lot of these choices I was making myself because I did not have a mentor. I did not have a proper mentor, I would say. I had some advice from, general people, that you would have in your life, mom, dad. But what do you do when they don't have the life or the lifestyle that you aspire to have? And the people that do have the lifestyle you aspire to have don't necessarily give you the game like that. So it's just like, you kind of just got to figure it out on your own. And that's what I had to do. I got close. I was getting close. I will say this. I was getting close. I was privy to a lot of these issues. I just didn't know, absolutely that it was that way. Certainly, I was just like, there's something going on here. Something right here. I do a little bit looking into it, and I'd be like, yeah, let me not do that. Let me not allow myself to be exploited, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say, shout out Jason Black because he absolutely accelerated my lexicon, my understanding, my ideology on life. Because without his wisdom, I could not be able to certainly sit here and say for sure that yes, this is what it is, for sure. And that means that's priceless. That means, oh God, that means a lot. I will say that that's priceless. So I will have to do more on this. I'll share some video clips, some stuff like that. Lots of links. I don't have any link. I'm probably just going to link the eventual broadcast I'm going to do later in this video. So, you know, you can go check out the links to on that video. And as always, to the few that watch, thanks for watching. Um, you know, this child, if you're a middle child out there, you know, do your thing. Do what you got to do. And I understand. But, you know, get to it. Get after it. Till next time.
お前はもう死んでいる。